another episode, SyncRiffs. So stoked to have UK music editor Clare Batterton from the UK. Good evening to you over there in the UK. How's it going, Claire?
It's good, thank you. Yeah, still sunny, which is good. Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, we're full height of summer and really stoked to be able to sit down and have a chat with you in the next hour or so about your amazing work as a music editor. And I'm going to take you back in the time travel machine if we could to talk about, because I'm curious, Claire. I know you're classically trained, you play the violin, you have a master's in music, and I'm curious how you became a music editor. And I think it was in 2017 you had worked on a TV series called Riviera, and you were assistant music editor. So how did that opportunity present itself, and what has led you as being one of five music UK female music editors in such a competitive field, and you're crushing it. So congrats on that.
Well, it was knew I wanted to be a music editor from quite a young age, actually. I watched a behind the scenes of a Friends series, and it was in like the mixing studio, and someone was doing the music, and I was like, I want to do that. So I did study music, classical and this theory of music, and my dissertation was all on Wagner and film music. But when I graduated, I was like, okay, I need to try and get into film and TV because that's what I want to do. So I moved to London, and I became the very glorious job of a runner, which
Yeah.
is, everybody knows, is not the most exciting job in the world, but it got me into a post house. However, in the UK, especially, music editors aren't hired. They're not on like they don't work for a company. They generally work for themselves. So I knew there was nowhere I could go within that company. So about 2.5 months, or well, yeah, it was about 2 months in, I saw a music editor and I said, I want to do his job. So I just messaged him on LinkedIn, and yeah, was lucky enough to sort of message him at the time when he was up for having someone to train up, because I had never opened Pro Tools, which is the software we use. I'd never opened it once in my life. He taught me everything, and it was Riviera was his gig, and he got me on it. And then that was it. I just learned everything over about the span of a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And, you never look back once, because now within this hour, two sides of a coin. We're going to talk about a couple productions that you worked on. One was came out in April in theaters here in the US, and now folks can stream it on Amazon Prime. But the film Wasteman, that you collaborated closely with the director Cal McMaho, and also the composer Matthew Barnes, aka Forest Swords. Do I have that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also, tip of the hat music supervisor was Phil Canning on the project. And the setup, do you want to tell us a little bit about, and I'll pull up, actually, since the picture is worth 1,000 words, I will pull up here we go. So we have Wasteman and Unchosen, the other production that's out on Netflix, and we're going to chat about. And some highlights as well before we go on. He had worked on Top Boy, The Witcher, Blood Origin, His Dark Materials, also Hustle, and Guy Ritchie's Wrath of Man. Some amazing credits. And when it comes to Wasteman, stars David Johnson and also Tom Blythe. For our listeners, if you haven't seen the production, highly recommend. And then also Unchosen, which we'll chat about in a minute. But the sonic template of this film, Wasteman, would love to start out with Claire talking about. I know one of the things that you had done working closely with Matthew Barnes was real-time editing sessions that really shaped the score. Tell us about what that process was like.
So Forrest, or Matt, he wrote a lot of like, I would call them sketches and pieces, songs, sketches that were for the film, but not for a specific scene. So I had a big bank of music from him with no real place specifically to put them. So I got to play around, but mostly with Cal, the director. And and forest as well. And I would stream my Pro Tools session with the picture, and I would just play with stems, it's like stems.
Mhm, mhm, absolutely.
And try to build the score from the ground up with the three of us together. And if anyone had a suggestion, I could just do it straight away. If they want to say, "Can we hear a bit of guitar here? Can we hear this theme here?" And
Mm.
that's how we worked every single meeting. That's how we did it. It was very organic and receptive and quick and just fabulous.
Amazing, amazing, and, you remind me of a quote and a tip of the hat to, he has a podcast called Pan and Zoom, but Sachi Gossett, his quote, one of his interviews that he had done, with, Burt Bacharach, who had worked with Public Enemy, is all films, there's 4 stages of the film. The version that's written, the version that's shot, the version that's edited, and the
Mm.
version that is seen in the theaters. So your role as a music editor, especially particularly in this production and all your productions is so critical to the
Mm.
storytelling and what you had just shared, Claire. I can imagine having the stems from forests. And I think if you want to talk about this scene here on the upper left, because it was think the song was called, it was Gosh by Jamie XX. Did you have the stems for that track? And this scene it was, if you want to set up what was the scene, it was in the cell. Yeah, go for it.
So basically, there's two guys, and one is David's character. He's about to get out of jail, and then Tom comes in as his new cellmate and just causes a bit of havoc and brings him back into the dark side a little bit with some nefarious prison goings on. And this is you can see in the scene just before this song starts. You can see David's character like trying to hold on to his morals and stay on this like clean side, and and Tom tips him over, and it goes into this fabulous hazy fun montage with the song. But we also needed to have score molded in as well so that it had a little bit of grounding. It wasn't just like the scene takes off and away. We
Yeah.
needed to have some score, so we started with score, and then the song comes in, and I don't think I had stems. You don't normally get stems for songs because they are as they are. You're not really supposed to mess with songs. I have got in trouble before for doing it.
Sure.
I've I've changed the pitch of a song or something. I mean, sometimes you have to do the odd move a frame here and there. And once the montage starts and that you can see that picture there, it's just so it tells a real story of Tom just being doesn't care, and you can see like he's so unsure in his head, David's character. And it's like, oh, it was so much fun, and it just fit perfectly. And I think they edited the picture to the song in the end, which is
Ah.
just dreamy for me because it all fits, tempo wise, and because I did shift it around, but I had this tempo map of the picture.
Mm,
Yeah,
mhm.
that was a great scene.
Yeah, it really captures, because I still remember when that track came out from Jamie XX, and he played it live at Coachella, and I went down the rabbit hole because it's such, I came up in the 80s and 90s in the rave scene in the US, and that track having its core roots in drum and bass. And what was cool, the original track, it was actually it samples Lynn Collins' Think About It for the drum track, and it's sped up. And like you said, Claire, with those cuts, it had almost like that underground rave feel. And you
Yeah,
can see the characters are completely out of their head in that moment, escaping from all that which happens behind being
yeah,
incarcerated. But such a huge track from Jamie XX. And I can go back to the other side because the soundtrack alone, some other huge cuts. Voodoo Ray, a guy called Gerald, was a huge track back in the day, and cues from Forest Swords. Let's talk about Crow, because that is a great
yeah.
segue on using that track in the storytelling. If you want, I'll turn the mic to you on talking about how was that used throughout the score and planting those early motifs to
Yeah.
build like towards a powerful emotional payoff in the finale.
Yeah, pretty much that. I know it's been out for a while, but I won't spoil it completely. But there's a pretty pivotal scene at the end. Obviously, David trying to say it without giving it away. You know, there's a huge revelation that I was actually quite shocked by, which is good. And it's him taking a bit of power back and you realize he's done something that you wouldn't expect. And the song is so perfect. I mean, Crow, it works so brilliantly because it's got like this heaviness, but also like power to it. But you can tell that it's a bit more, it's quite laid back as a song, but it just works for his character so well. But they started with that at the end, and we knew we
Mm,
wanted to build to that and have it so that it was a familiar sonic tone, but not that we've heard it in full before because we wanted to feel the full effect of it. So we had that sort of as his David's character's sort of Taylor is the character. Taylor's his out, I guess,
mm,
his sort of his freedom a bit, but his path to it, I suppose, if you wanted to get a little bit deep. But so we had moments a bit earlier on that we just sprinkled throughout. And actually I even took some of the synth because I had all the stems for that song. I took some of the synths and I slowed them down and I pitch shifted them. So some of the swells would just subconsciously appear throughout the whole film. Um
wow.
so that it felt like there was this undertone that was leading us to that moment, and that's what the whole film is leading to, so that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to do. So I just hid them throughout, but they were like, these pads underneath that, yeah, took us through.
Yeah. Safe to say, Claire, is that doesn't happen all the time. When you say this is a type of project or film and working closely with Forrest, that the music it served its purpose where you're like, hey, this let's take that approach. Is that a good assessment that doesn't happen all the time and you really crafted something there in the editing?
Yeah, it's funny because I think my generation of music editors, the young ones, I suppose. No, I'm not saying that, but because music editors are used a lot more and used more in TV, there
Mm,
is that we do have our hands in things a little bit more.
sure.
But Wasteman was special because Cal he was so passionate about it, and
Yeah.
Forrest was really passionate about it, and we wanted the music to parallel the story so closely. So it was a special project. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's huge because I've got on my Spotify, I've got the other tracks up, but some of there was Cell Battered by Four Swords, Need a Knife, Last Meal. And for me, being here in the US, and being a fan of bands like, Tricky, Portishead, and then watching like Danny Boyle's Shallow Ground, and then of course like 28 Days Later, or even Shane Meadows' This Is England, there's certain films that take you somewhere, and this is one of the Wasteland. It's so believable where for that hour and a half when you're in the theater, you're fully immersed in this world, and the music and what you did as an editor really dovetails that. So I'm a huge fan of your work on that. I'll go back to the original slide. The official selection at TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival 2025, and then BFI London
Mhm.
Film Festival. And if you want to talk a moment, yeah, both actors, I'm sure it takes a village.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say as you were talking, it also just helped that I mean, the both of them are phenomenal in their own characters. I can't lie, I love Tom's performance. I love both of their performances, but his character D, his performance as D, the music didn't have to work very hard throughout the whole film because Cal was so amazing as a director, and I'm not just saying it. It was an easy film. It was hard in some ways because I cared so much and the music was quite exposed because there isn't that much it is a slow film in some ways. It is a slow pace of life because they're stuck in there.
Yeah.
And you're really trying to follow Taylor's emotional journey as well. So, it was difficult to do, but it was also easy because it was shot beautifully, it was written beautifully, it was acted beautifully. It even just looked fabulous. Just the haze that was always on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so fun to work with. It was brilliant.
100%. And to book into Claire, if you want to spend a few moments with the riot scene, I can't remember, was what you had to sync to picture. Was it score? What was used for this the riot scene?
I'm fairly I should know off the top of my head, but I don't. I'm fairly certain it starts because it starts a score and then it goes into a song. I think it is. Is it a Mond comp? I don't know if I'm saying that right. I think it's a song. I mean, I could look at the cue sheet, but it was definite. It was. I love the way the music, because I remember sonically, just it's almost like you're in Dee's head and he's seen red and your ears are all muffled.
Yeah,
It just takes over and, like,
yeah,
envelops the whole scene, the sound, even the sound effects and the music, they work so brilliantly in that
yeah.
scene. And his face when it's smushed up against the
Yes,
I love that scene. It
yes.
just looks it just looks so good, and you're like, you don't have to work very hard to make this
Mm.
not only look amazing or sound amazing, it's just his performance is incredible.
So impactful, and I remember, I think, Claire, they might have used that snippet in the trailer, and I know
Mhm.
also, elements of Crow was also in the trailer, so like you said, it really tied everything through together,
Mhm.
but, the flip side of that coin, and then the segue is you also had worked recently on the British psychological thriller, Unchosen, and created by Julie Geary. And the six-episode drama follows Rosie, played by Molly Windsor, a devoted wife trapped inside an oppressive religious sect and whose life is upended by the arrival of an escaped convict. And I know you had worked closely with the composer. Tell us about working on Unchosen and what might some challenges or opportunities as a music editor, what that might have been like.
So, yeah, this is quite different because I came onto this later on in the process with Wasteman. I was on quite early as they were actually still cutting.
Hmm.
Whereas with Unchosen, I was brought on right before all the final mixes, which is when the picture's locked, you go into a big studio and it sounds like what it is. It's the final mix where dialogue effects and music are all mixed together by the re-recording mixer beautifully for the final thing. And what happened was, Anne is a phenomenal composer and she's got the music was beautiful. It's just sometimes it needed a little bit more shaping, or they changed their mind about something, or it doesn't work in the final mix anymore because there's new dialogue or effects, or they want a little bit more impact here and there. And whilst Anne is still working on the next episodes, I came in and molded the music a little bit more, basically,
Mm. Mhm.
which was really fun because I was working with themes that had been established in a way, but also they wanted to change a few things up. So I had to work with what I had and pull, sort of swap music around and find pace here and make this section a little bit more interesting or this. And Anne was so wonderful to work with because she wasn't precious. She was just like, absolutely do what you need to do and I'll carry on. So it was really great.
Very nice, very nice. No, I've got the soundtrack pulled up on Spotify, but just some of the song titles from the score, like it opens with The Fellowship, God's
Mhm.
Forgiveness, Drowning, Saving Grace, and the soundtrack. There's 15 cues, and it came out April 24th of this year, and it's out on Netflix Music. But would you say, Claire, obviously, depending on certain projects, safe to say sometimes working with a given composer, it may be your first time working with them. So, what's kind of that ebb and flow working with a composer you've never worked with before?
I mean, it's so trite to say it depends, but it
Mm,
really does depend because, sometimes the composer has already worked with the director or the producer, so I'm coming in, or sometimes nobody's ever worked together before, so everybody's new.
yeah,
But it's different as well with what the project needs. So for instance, I just finished on an Apple TV show as well. I talk about Netflix.
sure.
It's a good example because it's my favorite way of working for sure. And I worked with Ryan Lott from Sunlux, who is phenomenal. I can't lie. He's amazing. But what
Nice.
happened is he had, similar to Forrest in a way, where he was building up a bank of music from scratch. And I could play with the music however I wanted.
Mm.
And we just got into it so quickly because everyone was like, we're all here to try things and have fun and be creative and get it done. Um, and I mean, I've never worked with anyone that wasn't open to working with me, which is nice because, art is quite hard to, I mean, it's hard to pin down. It's hard to it's so subjective and someone might love something you do and hate it. And I had to learn very quickly not to be too bothered by that. Most of the time, composers, they're just happy to have you on because we're pretty helpful.
Yeah.
I think so.
100%. And it's like you said, Claire, to thread the needle. I love what you said about art being subjective and when you cut something to picture and what the director, what their vision might be. And I experienced this firsthand because a director friend of mine, I music supervised a short for him, and I was resourceful. I said, okay, let's take the visuals, drop it into iMovie, and I pitched some Blue Buddha artists. So then invariably I was through the mind of you as a music editor, what might work for the scene. Of course, I pitched some ideas to him. Some stuck, some didn't. And it's amazing, like you said, the vision is crystal clear that a director may have. And all we can do is make suggestions. Hey, how about try about this? And on the clearance side, as a sync agent, or if I was a music supervisor, here are budget constraints and having that dialogue with them to say what could work. Now, the segue, I guess, Sinclair, is like you said. So in with Unchosen, you were brought in. How does that impact if you're brought in earlier, you're brought in later in the stages of a production?
I think normally, I mean, I'm not just saying this because it means more work for me, these
Sure.
characters, but being on earlier is always better because I've been in a final mix when
Mm.
somebody has said, what was that song or that score or that theme we used in that? And I know because I was there 6 months ago doing it. And oftentimes I'm brought on when you're in the temp music stage. So they're still cutting, the cut is changing all the time. The music is not final. Sometimes it's not even music remotely written for the show or film. It's could be from Gladiator or, anything. And it's just temped. I'm sure you know. A couple of months down the line, someone will say, well, what was that temp piece? And what was that? And I can remember conversations that we had. It's like, actually, you really liked the movement of this, or you really liked the drums, or you really liked the thematic, or the swell here, even so that's the
Mm.
benefit is that we we become so involved and so intricate, so woven into the cut that we know basically everything about it. And then when a composer joins, or if they're already on, you are part of the process and you know the whole process. And by the time you get to the final mix, you know the music so inside and out. And you also know people's styles and opinions because it's not just one opinion. It can be executive producers and it can be higher ups and higher ups and showrunners and
Yeah.
writers. And so you learn the landscape and yeah, you become an invaluable part of the team, especially by a final mix, because that's when it has to be final.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I think anyway.
Yeah, and to piggyback on that, Clark, because I think it takes a village, and if there's a fire drill, say the
Mhm.
supervisor's like, "Hey, this track didn't clear. It's the 11th hour," and then you may have something that you can drop in and say, "Hey, I have this piece of underscore," or so I think that's a great through line. And Claire, back to episode one of Unchosen. Let's spend some time because I know there was a lot of the things you had to do when it comes to we have the character Rosie. She's searching for her daughter, and you had to balance the tension there with an emotional that scene there in episode one. What was that like as what you had to do as a music editor?
So literally on the stage, so in the mix, we were sort of talking about it and someone higher up said, it's just not working as it is. I want to feel X and currently feeling Y, and that's fine. The music was beautiful. It just wasn't quite working. So I literally went in to all the stems and I was chopping and changing and moving. I was bringing music from a later cue that was also associated with mother and daughter. and basically establishing more of a theme with them. And
Mm,
it became the mother and daughter theme. And I edited the music on the stage to make it fit the picture. So I changed it I didn't change it completely, but I changed it a lot with what I had from Anne. And we also shaped it. We'll take music out and bring music in, or, yeah, it's always hectic on the mix, but it's my favorite part.
mm, mm.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, no, it sounds like, and similarly, because I'm just curious, Claire, have you ever music edited for any advert campaigns in the UK?
I have done it for one,
Okay.
just the one. Yeah, and I had like 25 options of music. Because that's another thing I will say,
Yeah.
as someone who actually deals with all the legal side, I would never suggest a song ever.
Mm.
Because I would suggest something that costs too much or is too old or in the wrong era. If anything, I can do library and that's it. But no, I would never dare to step over that line, just to clarify.
Sure. Otherwise, the dreaded 10th love, and then the music
Yeah.
supervisor's like, "We've got 10 publishers to clear this track." Yeah.
Like £10,000 if at least out of the budget. I'm like, "Ooh, no, I
Right.
would never do that to you."
Right, 100%. And I'm glad you touched on that, because that's something I'm sure we both see this in some facet is once your friends, or if you meet someone and then they find out what your job is, and then they're like, "Hey, I've got the right piece of music. I hear you're working
Yeah.
on this project." And you're like, "Yeah, my drive is full with 10,000 other songs." So,
Yeah. Well, they've already chosen, I'm sorry.
yeah.
I have had that though in the final mix when songs are not cleared. They've just not managed to do it at the 11th, like you say, the 11th hour. And we've had to find a completely different, I mean, I would never do it, but I've had it and it is stressful when we're all looking and trying to find, I'm thinking, well, here's a score option. And
Yeah. And I think the final episode, if we want to spend a moment with Unchosen, because what you had to do was introduce new, darker musical material to match the way the narrative intensified towards its climax. What was that approach like?
that was quite collaborative with Anne, actually, because she knew that was what was needed. So at the end of Act 1, when she called it, I can't remember what the name was, the very last score cue right before the song in Act 1 has this almost like a sort of mini opera. It's so beautiful is the way it's like a 7-minute piece or something. And I knew I wanted to sort of hark back to that because it was like the start of when everything goes wrong kind of thing, and then bring it back to how it all culminates. And so
Mhm.
we used that as was speaking to Anna, I was like, I think this is what we need to base it on.
Mm.
And so a lot of the time with that episode, Anne was creating score that was thicker and harsher and darker and moodier. And then I was bringing back all the themes that we'd established over the previous 5 episodes, so that she gave me this wonderful basis, and I personalized it to the show, basically. But there is one of my favorite bits. Do you know when he comes to the car when they're stuck, the tree is stuck, and that's one of my like proudest music edits. When
Okay.
he hits him, and we shaped it beautifully, and it's just such a cool moment. And then Anne's music takes off again, and it's just, yeah, it was so fun.
Well, congrats on that, because I know there's we're halfway through the year, but I'm sure there's a ton more films and shows that you're gonna be working on, and
Yeah.
look forward to staying in touch and hearing about those projects. But before we end, I'm just curious, on the music side of things, when you're not working on a project, when it comes to live music or new
Mhm.
UK bands, or music from around the globe, how do you find your new songs? Is it word of mouth, or is there something that just comes across your desk? And is there any particular band right now that you're really excited about?
So I'm going to disappoint you, I think, because I work with music all day, every day. I need the dopamine. So I go to salsa music. I was on the salsa team during my master's, and I love musicals. And I do try and look at, indie Spotify playlists and stuff. But I'm also a bit of a like old soul, and I just love all the music that my mum brought me up on, like the 80s music and the John Hughes films, and a bit of Beethoven, a bit of Mozart, and, I'm a bit of I just love it. anything and everything, but it has to give me that like dopamine hit. So a good musical I'll take.
Yes, no, I can't. You can't be mad at that. And
And film
breakfast.
music, film music obviously. Bit of John Williams and yeah.
Yes, no, I see the Star Wars sign in the back.
Yeah.
So from one Star Wars fan to another, and as far as being a music editor, one piece of advice to our listeners, what would that be if someone's looking to break into being a music editor?
It is so hard. I think it's gonna sound really trite again or just kind of cheesy. Just first of all, annoy people, email people, reach people, and people like to talk about themselves and their job. So just ask them a lot, anyone and everyone, and just
Yeah.
just keep trying. Really, just keep going. And so a lot of people come and ask me, and I try and give them old stuff to work on that's already out. So the NDA is all clear and everything. And just give them examples. And so yeah, just trying to talk to a lot of people and just keep at it because there's plenty
Mm,
touch wood. There's work for everyone. Um
yeah.
and yeah, just keep going.
Yeah, and I love that. It's, oh, I was having a chat with another music supervisor the other day, and we were just talking about and thanks to, we can make a production, film it ourselves on our
Mhm.
iPhone, and do that DIY, post up on our YouTube page. If I was an aspiring music editor or a filmmaker, and just really showcasing your work out there. And thank you, Claire. The time flies by, and I'm really excited to continue to follow your work. And we'll post up in this episode ways that folks can follow your work. It's safe to assume you post up some of your work on Instagram.
I should do. I think I will. I'll start to. I should do. I'm just so bad. I got off Instagram because I was getting really sad about the world. But no, I will do. But I was going to ask what you're listening to at the moment. What do you listen to?
Well, interestingly enough, if it's not Blue Buddha artists that I'm either pitching, and then thankfully, this being the fourth season of SyncRiffs, truth be told, Jamie XXS, gosh, has been on repeat for when I'm doing my fitness workouts. And it's just, I came up in the 80s and 90s on, Orbital and Kraftwerk.
My mum loves Kraftwerk. Yeah, I get it. And I can't lie. The only person I would ever cry if I met would be Shania Twain. Yeah,
Mm.
so she's actually my hero. So I do love Shania Twain. When I was a power lifter and I used to do the deadlift by the
Yeah.
end, and I feel like a woman was my song. Everyone else had like heavy metal. I was like, put a bit of Shania on. Yeah.
Wow, very cool. So was that in college? The college?
No, I did it after. It's how I met my husband. Powerlifted. I used to do like amateur competitions. Yeah. Back before the toddler.
Wow, that's such a great story. And I think,
Yeah.
for mental health, fitness, for what we do, because our minds are always thinking, working on something, problem solving on the music side. And then in the absence of that, to be able to be in the zone, working out or meditating, to shut our brain off for a
Yeah.
moment. So,
Also, the industry's so busy and it
yeah.
demands a lot of you, so you need that time to yourself. And just like shoving a big like 100 and something kilo deadlift down just feels good.
Yes, yeah, another release of that stress in a positive way. But no,
Oh, good.
yes, 100%. But thank you, Claire. It was really, really delightful to catch up, and look forward to staying in touch. And thank you again.
Thank you for having me. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to share the episode. So with that, catch you on the next episode of Sync Riffs. See you guys on the other side, and be sure to follow Claire's work. And until then, namaste.
Go.